How's it going? Have you ever watched a TV show and have it change your life completely? So that's what happened to me. I was watching this TV show and it just got me curious. So I got the gene test, sent out the results, and waited. Then it hit me. Compared to the general population, I have 3 to 5 times higher the risk of getting Alzheimer's disease in my old age. And while I'm used to swapping things and worries under my rug, well, eventually they just cause you problems in later life. And this one kept on bugging me. This has got to change, and I have to do something about that. And to warn you and to give you some of those ways to reduce your risk of getting brain disease in the future and help you to live longer, more healthily, and more happily. So this is the Longenesis. So I got my Alzheimer's gene test and I have a higher risk for getting Alzheimer's when I'm 70 years old. It is the gene pair of APOE4 and APOE3 that gives this the high risk, specifically the APOE4 gene. So I was just watching this cool TV show called Limitless with Chris Hemsworth, and where he is trying to discover the means to live healthy for longer and more better. And I just love the shows that changes your life. So I watched it, and one particular episode got me thinking, where Chris discovers the exercises and principles to maximize his long-term memory in his old age and to prevent dementia and memory loss and Alzheimer's. And he got himself a gene testing of Alzheimer's, and that news struck him into the core. Chris has a very rare gene combination that makes him to have 8 to 10 times higher risk of getting Alzheimer's disease in his old age. Alzheimer's is a loss of cognitive function, loss of memory, and loss of thinking, in a plain explanation. And I thought, maybe I should get that test to myself too. So I looked up my local gene testing for Alzheimer's, and I got the results back, and I was just struck to the core as Chris was. And at the same time, I was terrified and yet incredibly thankful for this kind of news. It's sort of like a blessing, just like he said in his show. It gives me more motivation to start doing the right necessary things to prevent and to reduce the risk of dementia in my old age. Because Alzheimer's, it takes like 50 to 20 years to develop before you have any kind of memory loss symptoms or any other that. So you can't just decide that when you are 50 or 60, okay, now is the time to think about my brain health. You are already too late because you only have like 5 or 10 years for the symptoms to actually come out, and the damage has already been done. So what I have done here in this video is just a quick summary of those episodes. And what I want this video to be is for you to get the practical steps and means how to improve your longevity so that you can live longer, more happily, and more healthily, and to lessen diseases including dementia, including Alzheimer's. So at the first episode, we have something what is called stress management and reduction. Because stress is something that every one of us have in this modern life. And in our modern life, our flight or fight system, which means the just a momentary activation of immense energies to fight your opponent or to run away from dangerous predators. This mechanism is fired up, and if it can't shut down completely, it can cause a huge deal of damage in the body, because we have too much cortisol in our system, and that's what's keeping the flight or fight system from completely shutting down. And when you have long-term stress with high cortisol, it's just you have a high risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and osteoporosis. So what you need to do is to determine your sources of stress. That's exactly what Chris did in this episode. So what are the most common sources for stress for average person? It's usually something that when you have to do something that you're not prepared for, when you are pressured for a long time, just dealing with stressful situations. Well, for example, when my plans are not working, right? I make a plan and it doesn't work the way as I expected it to work, and it just stresses you out. Getting overwhelmed with things when you have a short temper, doing incredibly intimidating things like it could be just even public speaking for you or doing presentations. You can also get in a situation where you are doing too many things at once, you're having too many projects at once, and when the deadlines come up and you haven't done them accordingly to your schedule, it is incredibly stressful also. You could also get eventually stressed out when you had this constant huge effort on things that maybe you were bothered in your childhood for your parents having too little money, and you got this idea and this habit. You had to work extra hard to bail your parents out and to bail yourself out. And you have taken huge things upon yourself, and you carry that pattern with you of needing to work hard to accept a lot of projects to fulfill the thing that may have already been fulfilled. So you need to start dealing with stressful situations. You have to learn how to bring yourself down into a calm focus level instead of being stressed out and letting the stress burn you out eventually. And in this episode, we're shown some couple of techniques that Chris uses to calm himself down in the moments of being pressured or in high stress action. And the first one, when under pressure, we tend to have this, we tend to get this negative self-talk in a way that I'm gonna fail, I can't do this, it's gonna be a disaster, I'm gonna fail. And that alone actually increases your heart rate and breathing. It makes you anticipate some kind of a negative or bad outcome of the situation. In this situation where you are pressured, you ask yourself, how can I do this differently? What will I gain from this experience? Or you could just tell yourself, I can do this, I can manage this, I can start again, I do this all the time, I can achieve that. And just focus on your breathing rhythm. And in this episode, we also have this rock climber who climbs the rope on very high altitudes. And she is talking about how to break one big stressful challenge into bits, into chunks, into single steps that you can focus on doing at one time, and then another step and another step, while also keeping herself calm in a focused manner by focusing on her breath and her positive thinking. Like, I can take one more step. Come on, you can do this. Relax, you got this. And eventually that one step will propel you across this challenge. While you are walking through this fear and stress, it doesn't affect you the same anymore in the future because you get so used to it and it will not stress you out anymore. And next we have high stress action. It's the one that often, usually, the first responders like police or firefighters have in extreme situations in their work. And in these moments, it is recommended to do the 4-box breathing, which means that you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it in for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, and hold that for 4 seconds. What it does is you're sending a signal back to your brain, and it means that stress signals connecting your brain to your body is not just one way, it's a two-way. The body can send its own signals back. Firefighters and policemen often have this underlying stress that causes them one day to leave their relationships or get divorced because of all of this stress they were not aware of. And to battle that, they're doing mindful meditations where they are focusing on what they're feeling at the moment, and followed by drifting into this calm, relaxed focus, and they are less stressed at the moment. By doing it regularly, you can actually alter your stress response, which means that the same things will not stress you out anymore, just like the high rope climber. So the mindful meditation helps them to be a firefighter or a policeman for longer and to live longer and healthier. How do you actually introduce stress management into your life is simply to try to do the mindful meditation exercise at least 10 minutes. Just try to do it every day in the mornings. Do 4-box breathing where you are in a high stress action. And remember the positive self-talk and focusing on your breath when being under pressure. So the next we have is cold and heat shock. And I'm very familiar with the cold shock and heat shock as I'm doing regular cryotherapies and saunas all together. And what they do is pretty amazing. For example, the cold shock forces our body to upgrade its immunity and to power up those microscopic repairs. And it could cut the risk of disease and add years to your life. And it does it by reducing inflammation and reducing pain. They scramble the pain signals in your source of pain into your brain. It also reduces your depression and anxiety and replaces it with good mood and the release of endorphins. Also, it has anti-aging benefits by triggering your body to produce more collagen, because collagen production starts to decrease as we age also. While it also raises your testosterone levels, the strongest one is perhaps the emotional strength and strong mindset. Choosing to do the hard and uncomfortable thing in order to gain some long-term benefits. You get stronger and you have a stronger mindset. Just think how bad it is to take this decision to jump into freezing cold water or to go into cryotherapy chamber where it gets like minus 190 degrees Celsius, and it's pretty tough decision to make. And while you get in terms in your head with it, you are stronger. You have power over yourself to override your baseline of thinking to take on the challenges that make you stronger inside. And lastly, the heat shock, as in saunas, in a very hot sauna for at least 20 minutes at a time. It increases the production of heat shock proteins in our body, and what those heat shock proteins do is they help to clean up the molecular junk and waste in our bodies. Having too much of this waste in our bodies just increase the risk for getting heart disease, cancer, or having dementia. What you can do, how you can introduce cold shock and heat in your routines is to, I recommend trying out a cryotherapy session. Try this out and see how you're feeling after that. I promise you soon begin to love it if you do it regularly. I do cryotherapy 2 to 3 times a month, and it's just a nice way to bring down my anxiety and depression and to have better immunity. Also, 1 to 2 times a week doing regular saunas, at least 20 minutes and at least 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. And being done with this heat and cold, we are moved into the fasting episode, where Chris is doing a 4-day fast, and at the end of the 4th day, he is hunting for his own food while being starved for the last 4 days. Another thing is that the glucose, our main source of fuel for our cells, they're feeding our healthy cells, right? But they're also feeding those old and damaged cells that are still there. These old zombie cells are spewing out toxins and infecting other healthy cells, just like skin flakes. You know they're dead, they taste bad, and you don't want them because they have no use for you anymore. And all of this just speeds up the aging process, while also giving us the high risk of cancer, dementia, arthritis, wrinkles, and hair loss. In ancient days, it was natural for our ancestors to go without food for days and to go hunting instead. They use hunting as a distraction, and you should do the same if you choose to go on, for example, a 24-hour fast. You should have many activities you can do to distract yourself from the starvation. While you are fasting, you are starving those damaged old cells in your body. Eventually they will die and they will be recycled. And while at the same time your healthy cells goes into this repair mode and to clean up the micro garbage inside of them. And that could mean a longer and healthier life. You have to get energy from somewhere, right? In this 3rd or 4th day of water fast, your body starts to move up the fat cells into your liver and convert them into ketones. And ketones, while giving you a new source of energy, they sharpen your mental focus. Your body is just going recycling and repair mode while also giving you energy and improved focus. So to try out fasting, you could try avoid eating until midday 3 times a week. It means that you're eating your last meal at the evening and you do not eat until midday on the next day. And the next you could try 24-hour fast. I have personally tried this and I think it's good. I feel more refreshed, more energized, and I sleep better. And maybe you can try to do 4-day water fast once a year, but you always should talk with a doctor when trying this out for the first time. Next, we have the strength episode where Chris is given a challenge to climb 100 feet of rope in mid-air. So he needs to develop his all body strength, meaning grip, bicep, leg, shoulder, and back muscles. He needs to use a much more wider range of muscles, almost like all-round body muscles. And that's what it means for longevity, is to try to make use of many of those muscles as possible so that you're still mobile, you're still flexible, and you have a good endurance in your old days. And while training helps your muscles to release chemicals that fights with many diseases, they also release myokines that prevent fat buildup. They suppress certain cancers, and they will make your immune system work for better, for longer, and keep it young. Endurance training also signals our body and our muscles to produce more mitochondria so that you have more energy even when you're old. So that the true strength is not just how strong you are, it's also about staying mobile, staying injury-free in your old age. Endurance training is any kind of physical exercise where you're doing this for a long time, like running, swimming, cycling, rowing. All of those exercises help you to increase endurance and therefore increase the mitochondria production. Try to do more climbing exercises. You can even try out the actual rope climb exercise and look up for the ways to train those muscles you use to climb a rope. And daily exercises away from gym where you are engaging a lot more muscles in your body. And next we have the memory episode that was the most amazing for me. And the first thing is you should do Alzheimer's gene test to determine if you have a moderate risk or a higher risk to get sick in the future. If you watch my videos, I assume you're somewhat interested in staying healthy for longer and want to live longer. What's from this episode is that our brain starts to degenerate once we get 30, and after that it just goes down gradually. And as I mentioned before, Alzheimer's take up to 20 years to develop before you have any kind of noticeable symptoms of memory loss. So while you're taking care of your body, you also have to take care of your brain, especially when you are in your late 20s. You do this by giving yourself and your brain novel challenges to work with, to stimulate neuronal connections and hippocampus. Hippocampus stores all of our memories, and it's often the first that is attacked by Alzheimer's. So the navigating challenges and direction determination is one of the most complex tasks. So it stimulates your brain pretty well. The stronger the hippocampus, the better resistance it has for the cognitive losses. And you don't want to forget having social contact. Spending time with other people is good and beneficial for our brains because we are social animals, right? And interacting with others can encourage us to learn new things, spark any new thoughts, or just ways of seeing the world. But when we are isolated, our risk for dementia is about 50% bigger. So the people around us may be the most important thing. Exercise and dancing encourages neurons to grow and stay healthy also. And also another important thing is that our urban settings and distractions strains our cognitive abilities. But those cognitive abilities are restored with the sights and sounds of nature. And it lowers our stress. And the last thing that's very important in our brain health is when you're having sleepless nights, prevents the flush out of toxins from our brain. And this process of clean out and flushing out gets impaired as we age also. By having too much toxins in our brain, it can also cause inflammation and lead to Alzheimer's. So the practical steps to Try to preserve your memories to eat and sleep well. Challenge the mind and body with the new novel experiences. Immerse yourself in nature, away from modern life, and share all of this with the people you love. And this last episode of Acceptance, where Chris learns to accept and adapt and surrender to the idea of aging and death itself, because it's a thing that is unescapable and it just waits us, every one of us. The main ideas I got from this is that learning to accept aging and death brings another kind of stress relief, because we have this habit of denying aging and denying death, and it is actually bad for our blood pressure and our neurochemistry, and it's generally bad for our physiology. But by accommodating and adapting to that reality makes us more happier and less depressed. And in this episode, Chris meets with many interesting persons who have had interesting life, and they have to come to accept their situation, adapt, and find a new kind of meaning from their new life. So you will grow old, your body will fail. Gradually, you have to accept it. So you have to find new opportunities to connect your physicality, adapt and evolve with aging. It means that you adapt to this process of your body aging and eventually learning how to rely on the others and accepting it that you're not going to beat aging and death. So Chris is met with all people in a painting class, and they talk about what they're doing to stay active and to stay sharp in their old age. They're doing painting, swimming. Some of them are doing Tai Chi, which is just shadow boxing, doing things outside and keeping good relationships with their family members. In this episode, Chris meets with a lot of people, and every one of them says something smart. The next was, you will lose the people you love, and the long time grief gives you time to think and grow. And the long time grief means at least 100 days. Things might actually turn to be quite different in your young years. Also, you could get diagnosed with a deadly disease in your mid-20s, and it absolutely turns your life to upside down. Through that girl is talking that nobody actually knows their timelines. You don't know when you're going to die. So you have to live life as much as you can and enjoy it. And the ending of this episode, we are shared with the ideas and thoughts that life is not a right. Life is a gift. Every another day is a gift. And truthfully, we are not limitless. And we are all to focus on what matters, and all of it matters. Every moment, every smile, every tear, every kiss, all of it. And living the longest, happiest, and healthiest life is a work of a lifetime. And that's the end of the series. My recommendations is you should try to watch this series. It's a very good one. And the second is, do your Alzheimer's risk gene test right away and start implementing and introducing those practical steps into your life right away. Start with the easiest ones, like exercising or saunas or meditations or not eating until midday. Just start with the easiest ones and move over to next level. Ultimately, you go into this state where you're doing every one of those protocols to live the longest, the healthiest, and the happiest as you possibly can in your old age. Stay sharp and stay aware.